In Europe there are a lot of flags, and a lot of these flags have tricolours on them. Why? Well, I'm going to get into why. But first of all, let's talk about who. It's the Oh yeah, this video is going to be quite meme heavy, and also any nationalism and clear bias is intended as a joke, so just don't start any wars, guys. We're also being sponsored today by Eine Flags, which is absolutely awesome, but let's crack on with the video and get into that in a little bit. It's with the Dutch that our European tricolour story starts. The modern Dutch flag is actually the Dutch flag that was known as the Statenvlag, which is Dutch for the States flag, which is a red, white, blue horizontal tricolour. Now, an earlier version of this flag and what it's based on is known as the Prinsenvlag, which is in Dutch the Prince's flag, with orange and a lighter blue. And this flag was based on the Prince, known as Willem van Oranje or Willem de Zwijger.
Ik ben Willem de Zwijger, dat is weliswaar een geuzennaam. Fok je met mijn volk, breek ik binnen door je keukenraam.
Willem and his Dutch rebels would go on to win the 80 Years' War against the Spanish, culminating in the founding of the Dutch Republic, the first Northern European Protestant republic of the modern era, using the tricolour as their symbol and their flag. And this is an important step in the history of all the tricolours in Europe, this being the first. So if we skip forward to the end of the 17th century, to a man named Piotr Wielki, who we know in English as Peter the Great. Now, he had come to the reins of the large Russian Empire, but at the time it was very backwards compared to many European countries, something which he sought to rectify. Now, one aspect in which Russia was backwards was that their arch enemies, the Swedes, had a large and a powerful navy, yet the Russians had an incredibly weak navy with few ships. Now, Peter wanted to move into the modern era, and so he spent 4 months of his life learning from the very best in naval warfare. Of course, it's the Dutch. Oh wait, I already played the anthem, I'll just get on with it. Peter the Great spent 4 months in Amsterdam, which is obviously where the largest shipbuilding place was at the time, which was the East India Company's shipbuilding wharf. And even today there is a street in Amsterdam called the Tsar Peterstraat, the Tsar Peter Street, where he resided during his time there. Now, he came back to Russia and implemented these reforms in his use from being on the shipbuilding wharf and built a large navy which soon defeated the Swedes in battle during the Great Northern War. Of importance to us is something else that he brought back, which was the colours of the Dutch flag. He muddled them around a little bit like this and turned them into the familiar Russian flag of today, although back in Peter's time this was only used as a civic flag, while the army still used the imperial standard and with the double-headed eagle on it. This was then used by merchants and members of the civil government, for example. Now, this also became the foundation of the pan-Slavic colours of red, white and blue because of this civic nature of the Russian flag's use. And it's obviously today where many of the Slavic countries get the base colours for their flags, and many of those are also variations of tricolours with royal and other insignia being shown in them. Skipping forward to the end of the 18th century, there was much unrest in France, culminating in the French Revolution with the execution of the monarchs of France and the start of the French Republic. Now, the flag there, much of the rioting had been done in Paris and was based on the two Parisian saints, Saint Denis and Saint Martin, both represented by the colours blue and red, and the white was, of course, because the government surrendered. Although, you know, we really know where the flag actually comes from. Very similar to the Dutch, you know, the First Republic, but sure, we know what you did. So now that we've talked about how the French stole our flag, it's time to talk about... Before I talk about the southern provinces of the Netherlands, I'd like to mention our video sponsor, which today, rather fittingly, is Eine Flags. Now, if you're watching this video, I'm guessing you have an interest in flags and vexillology, and I myself certainly do. And you'll know that when you go online and when you buy flags, they're not exactly the cheapest kind of present to get. However, Eine Flags actually sells them for not too much money. I was actually very much surprised, as you can see here. They also sell a big range of different kinds of flags, so you go all the way from your US state flags to national flags, garden flags, and then other types of flags, as well as accessories like flagpoles and such, if you would like to hang them up and watch them fly in the breeze. Now, one really cool feature that I like about Eine Flags actually is that if I click on this one, then you can even design your own flag in the custom flag section. And what you can do with this is to have not only on one side, as many sites do, but you can get them on both sides. So your design printed on both sides if you send them in, and you can add all sorts of bells and whistles and alter how large they are and what kind of adjustments they have for flagpoles and such. But I thought that was a really interesting, cool feature, and I thought that might be something that you guys are interested in, because I know a lot of my fans, you like designing flags and definitely like watching videos about them. So I thought this was a really good sort of sponsor to get for this video, because it might be something you're actually interested in. With helpful customer support that can be reached both through the phone and on the site itself, as well as free shipping, what's stopping you? Check out the link in the description below to Eine flags. I'm sure you'll find something that you're looking for there. In 1830, people in what is now Belgium revolted against the Dutch government, and because the French had used this flag during their revolution and they were known as big rebels in Europe, this was one of the first flags that was used by these Belgian rebels. Although there had also been another rebellion in Belgium just some 30 years before, coinciding with the French Revolution, which was known as the Brabant Rebellion, named after the Duchy of Brabant, and these had been the colours of the flag used then. These were the colours of the Duchy of Brabant, so again historic colours being used in a tricolour, because again the tricolour was this symbol of the Republic, although then they had been fighting against the Austrians. Now, however, they switched these colours around, and soon this became the new flag of the Belgian rebels in opposition to the Dutch. However, a few years later, they changed this flag around and switched it to the more familiar Belgian tricolour, which is vertical. And my theory for this is, and I think most people would agree, that this is done to make it less like the Dutch flag, who they had seceded from, which was horizontal, and more like the French tricolour, which was also vertical, as the French had actually helped them to rebel against the Dutch. Aha, you might be thinking, I'm spotting a pattern. Does this mean that the German flag, which is the Belgian flag but muddled up and the wrong around, is because the Belgians helped the Germans to become independent from the French? No, Germany does its own thing. So the German flag, we have to delve back into a little bit of history. Now this flag is actually the modern flag of Germany and was used by the Weimar Republic as well as a little bit before then in certain circles. But to find out more, we need to go back to 1866, which was the North German Confederation. This was after, obviously, the Napoleonic Wars, and when Prussia was becoming the largest and most powerful of the German states. This was an important step in the unification of Germany, and they decided upon a new flag for this North German Confederation. This new flag, what they did was to combine the Prussian flag and the Prussian colours of white and black, which was, of course, the most important state and the driving force behind it, with Bismarck, for example, and also the Hanseatic colours of white and red, as many of the new states being incorporated into the North German Confederation had Hansa cities within them. And so, with white, black and white, red, this is the flag they came up with. Now this also became the flag of the new German Empire in 1871 following the Franco-Prussian War, and remained the flag of the German Empire up until 1918, as well as being used after that. But what about this flag then, which is the modern flag of Germany? Where does this one come from? Well, it was actually used, the earliest we know of, in 1778, although in very different proportions. It was almost square. This was by the Principality of Rosgrais, which was one of the German states back at that time. Although really this modern form can be attributed to something else. Now after the Napoleonic Wars, veterans of the Lützow Corps all came together in Jena and formed a fraternity there. Now eventually they come up with this flag, which is red, black, red, and also a golden oak branch, these colours being inspired by the uniforms they wore during the Napoleonic Wars. Now eventually this fraternity drew many different soldiers from lots of different backgrounds and across Germany, and so they started to associate these colours of gold, red and black with people from all across Germany. And actually in 1848, during a lot of revolutions in Europe, this was used as a colour to represent all Germans. So this idea of pan-Germanism, of wanting to unify Germany as a country, which is where we get the black, red, gold from. Now the first time it was used in an official way was after 1918, when the German Empire collapsed with the old imperial flag, and when the Weimar Republic came in, they decided to use this flag instead. Although during the Weimar period, as you'll know if you've watched my videos on it, the imperial flag was used by various nationalist and also more right-wing conservative, generally anti-Weimar parties and people who were against the democracy that had been started there. This was still used, but that's where the German tricolour comes from.
forget! Someone is in this house!
Le knock-knock, c'est Napoleon. Yes, we need to talk about the French and go back to the Napoleonic Wars to find out about the next tricolour being used in Europe. Now, during the Napoleonic Wars, the French crossed over the Alps and invaded Italy, and during this time, obviously the Italian states, there were many states, it wasn't one unified country, and the French made the Cisalpine Republic around Milan. Now, the flag that they used for this is very similar to the modern Italian flag, which is obviously related to the French flag. Now, the reason why they chose these colours and the formation, again, the formation was because they were basing it on the French flag, so a tricolour, and obviously it's clear to see that that's what they did. And the colours were based on the troops of the Milanese Guard, always wore green, as did many other troops during the this period in Italy, so that's where they got the green from, and the white and the red, again, it's basically copying the French, but also because the flag of Milan is the St. George's cross, so red cross on a white background. So this is where they got the colours from. Now, of course, later on, many of the other states also copied these kinds of colours in Italy during this period, and this is why during the wars of the Italian unification with Garibaldi, for instance, lots of different factions were using red, white and green tricolours, and this became a symbol for Italian unification, and obviously then, later on, went on to become their flag. So some last mentions before I finish. Luxembourg, because Belgium did it and they wanted to be special. It's the colours of the Duchy of Luxembourg, but then essentially it's just the Dutch flag, but lighter. Spain, because they had a flag designing competition in the middle of the 19th century and used it on their ships. Actually, a lot of tricolours are used on ships because they're very easy to see at sea, which is probably why the Dutch used the tricolour as well, one of the big reasons, because of the navy. And then thought actually it looks kind of cool. They superimposed their own coat of arms, which is actually a combination of all the symbols and flags and banners and such of all the various kingdoms in Spain. Like, I should probably do a video on the Spanish flag at some point because it's very interesting. Which is the Spanish flag, and then you also have the Irish flag, which is because, well, they were rebels like the French, and also in the American Civil War you had Thomas Francis Maher. He was actually given this flag by a load of French women, and they said, oh, the orange is for the Protestants because of...
Ik ben Willem de Zwijger, dat is weliswaar een geuzennaam. Fokje met mijn volk, breek ik binnen door je keukenraam.
Also the green, because it's, well, it's the Irish green, and then the white between them is this sort of international symbol of peace and the truce between the Catholics and the Protestants, which unfortunately took a little bit longer to create than the flag, but we're getting there. Alright everyone, so I hope you've enjoyed this rather tongue-in-cheek, kind of meme-heavy video on the tricolours of Europe and how they spread around and how they influence one another, etc. So yeah, please don't take everything in this video too seriously. I hope I've made it clear where I'm joking and where I'm having obvious bias with memes, etc. And I hope you have enjoyed this one. So please do check out Ainley Flags, the awesome sponsor of this video, and check out some of these tricolours for yourselves. I believe all of the flags mentioned in this video, at least of the national countries, are on there. If you are from there and would like a flag, then it's a good place to go. So thanks very much for watching. I've been History with Albert, and I'm looking forward to seeing you all again very soon.